the Procon 0.5mm airbrush from Mr. Hobby or GSI Creos. I don't really know who makes it. The only thing I do know for sure is this thing is manufactured in the same warehouse or factory as Iwata. So many of the parts are actually interchangeable, which is interesting. So you know that there's some level of quality. Actually, there's a great deal of quality here. I originally grabbed this brush because I figured larger things like shields and so on and perfect grades as I plan on painting them is going to need something bigger than my Iwata Highline C. So I picked up the PS290 and I don't regret it actually. It has a much larger cup simply because of the 0.5mm needle. This thing flows paint like you wouldn't believe. The accessories come with this hose that's only compatible with that little silver thingy right there you're looking at on the left. It's for connected to the air cans. That way it gives you the ability to actually turn maybe your Mr. Hobby paint can into something to use with your airbrush. Cool feature, I guess, but not for me. But it's nice they add it, you know. You could probably use it with other airbrushes if you happen to have them. So it's good to have the option there. It also comes with a little wrench and an extra cap. There are two caps on this thing. One that shoots in a circular motion, per as usual, and one that shoots in a more finer line. Like it's almost like a mini spray gun for painting cars, is the best way I could put it. As I stated before, bigger cup, 15mm. You can actually connect huger cups to this, dude. I saw a guy online spraying with this who had a cup that was big enough to work on a car. It was crazy. It was actually quite cool. Nothing I really need for what I'm doing, but it's nice to know that the option is there. The finish on this is immaculate. It's as good as my Iwata. It's better than any cheap thing you'd get, frankly. I can recommend this to anyone who's doing a lot of painting. It is fantastic for base colors, it is fantastic for priming, and it's great for clearing large objects. The other big plus with this thing is the needle. Strangely enough, it's not very sharp, believe it or not, which is cool. So the odds of you breaking the tip are slim, very slim. This is the first airbrush I've had where I didn't mess up the needle at all because it's just so blunt at the top. It's great, really. It's very reassuring. It makes you feel safe, which is weird to say. Like, I won't screw this up, and then you just don't screw it up. But when you're messing with like a $12, $15 needle for your Iwata and it gets a slight bend in it, you die inside. Price point for this thing is pretty good, 120 bucks. Removal of the caps, once again, very simple, very easy. Look at this thing. It is phenomenal. I can't really say much about this other than it is worth the money if you do a lot of airbrushing, which ironically I do these days. I haven't really found the need to take it fully apart yet because usually after I run every paint, I immediately flush it out. You know, the second I do one color, I flush out the gun and switch before I switch to the next color because I don't know, I'm just weird like that. Most people, they spray a color and then they throw another color right in the pot. Doesn't matter. They just go with the flow. Before you know it, your paint cup on the inside is just covered with so many different colors. By the way, I don't like the top for this. This is probably the lamest part of this airbrush is the top. It's a very rough sort of metal. I may just buy an extra Iwata top and replace it because it would match the rest of the airbrush and much smoother. Probably it's easier to get paint off of like a smooth chromed piece rather than something rough like that. Like I really got to scrub paint off of that top if I get it there. Or cap, whatever the hell it's called, to be honest. This is the standard size for an Iwata brush. And if you don't own Iwata brushes, then it's the same size as a Master airbrush brush. Those are real cheap, and usually the airbrush most people get as their first airbrush. That includes me. So I'm not really taking a crap on anyone. I'm just saying to give a sort of gauge. If you use Badger stuff, then you're going to need an adapter for this airbrush to use it with your hoses. Unfortunately, I made a huge mistake and I deleted all the video of me using the airbrush with a black primer, which makes it so much easier for you to see what's being done and how it lays down on paint. So for now, we're just gonna have to live with clear. Sorry. Hope you don't mind. Now, the beauty of this airbrush for me is the level of coverage. That's why I prefer only using it for base coats, primers, and clears, because usually my game plan there is to get the best coverage and make sure it's even. You know, with smaller airbrushes, there's always a shot that you could, you know, have an uneven spray and then everything looks all wrong. Then you either got to try and buff it out later or you got to lay down another spray and be metronomic with it, or else it goes wrong. With this, I really don't have that problem. I just fire away and it's fine. There is actually some finesse here. Whereas you can gauge how much paint and airflow goes through a normal airbrush. The same is effective here, though I don't really bother with it unless like I'm doing certain things. When I'm like base coating or whatever, I'm just looking to get maximum coverage without it being a hot mess. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably in too close right here, but I was trying like hell to be within the camera shot, which it can be a little tough when you can't see what you're doing on camera while airbrushing. Another warning with this product, as I said before, it's a very large needle and it moves a lot of paint. It moves a lot of air, like a metric ass ton. So I would strongly recommend an airbrush with a tank for this. Like, do not use one of those normal airbrush compressors that don't have a tank, because it will never stop running. That's how much air this uses. Even with a tank, like a 2-gallon tank, this thing continuously had my little airbrush motor running. Got to probably get 2 sprays off before the compressor is trying to refill the tank again. That is how much air this thing can move. It's utterly ridiculous. But if you have like a normal sort of air compressor, you know, like a heavy duty one for power tools and whatnot, then you're golden. You don't even have to worry about this. But for everybody else with a small hobby airbrush setup, this thing is going to have your little compressor screaming. Overall consensus, this is probably for the hobbyist that does a lot of painting and really wants to make sure their base or clear coats are perfection. This can be used with the circular cap for more fine-tuned spraying. I don't really find myself doing that at the current point in time because of the size of the models I've been working on are 1/100 scale usually, so they're not too big. But when I work on something like the GPO3, Dendrodorm or Dendrominum, whatever that thing's called, the giant thing in Stardust Memories, this airbrush is going to be a godsend. So it's perfect for larger scale stuff, perfect grades, Neon Xiong or Neo Xiong, something huge, 1/24 scale jets or ships, subs, something big enough to where a normal airbrush would really be a hindrance and you'd catch cramps just attempting to paint these large scale items. This is where this airbrush fits in. I would say it's definitely worth the money, even though it says Mr. Hobby on it. Don't be fooled. It's not some cheap piece of crap. This thing is actually the genuine article. I like it so much, and ever since I bought it, I've used it regularly. It's one of my top airbrushes. I like it so much, I might actually check out some more airbrushes from this company. And that's the best compliment I can pay them, honestly. The only real problem I actually have with this is how many parts this thing is to take apart. It is a lot of pieces. It's a real pain to take this thing apart and clean it. So that's why I try never to ever let paint dry in this. Don't do it. Unless you're used to taking apart airbrushes and you have a tool set for it, then you're fine. Before the average person that's just into hobby airbrushing, this could be a daunting one to take apart and work on. And on that note, I'm the hell out of here. I'm a little tired, but unfortunately I got one more thing to paint before I'll do a video on the, as you can see, camo RGM sniper, codename Welcome to the Jungle. Because why not?